Hello everybody, this is Blex here, bringing you a brand new guide for Season 5 of Diablo 3. This is patch 2.4. I'm playing a wizard again, as always. I'm bringing you the DMO Twisted Sword Etched Sigil combo build. I'm bringing you this build because people explain the gear nicely, but people don't go over how to actually play this build, so I have an in-depth footage of how I beat the Greater Rift 75 for the first time, following this quick gear discussion and skill discussion, just so you guys are fully up to date with how I'm playing this build. So let's get right into the skills. Your main damage dealer is the Energy Twister using Raging Storm. This is the most important damage dealer you have, so you're going to want to be spamming this as much as you can. Your next skill, your secondary damage dealer, is your Arcane Torrent Static Discharge. Now the reason why I'm using Static Discharge instead of Disintegrate Intensify is because it procs more Arcane Power. And Arcane Power is the most important resource in this build. You're going to have crit hits return some amount of Arcane Power. I have 3 on this, you can have 4. And then you're going to have Conduit returning Arcane Power as well. In my experience, Arcane Torrent Static Discharge returns the most. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's unmatched in its ability to give you that regen that you need. Next, there's some pretty standard skills. We're going to be using Teleport Safe Passage for the damage reduction and mobility. We're going to be using Slow Time Exhaustion for the damage reduction, as well as in order to proc the Delasier's DMO set. And then we're going to be using the old favorite, Ice Armor Crystallize. You really can't find a build these days without Ice Armor in it, because we're going to be using APDs and Halo as well. Now lastly, some differences in other builds you might see is the magic weapon. I'm using Conduit in this case. Other builds are using Deflection. In my opinion, the more damage you can do and the more arcane power you can regen, the better off you are, because you're able to mow down these enemies. When I use Deflection, I have insane survivability, but I have an extreme lack of ability to take down these monsters. And I'm using some other alternatives in my cube to help keep me safe, and I think Conduit is a must-have in order to progress. So let's quickly go over the gear using the 6th piece of the DMO set. I previously was doing the Arcane Orb build, so you'll see some weird rolls, like I have an Arcane Orbit on my helm, but I use Caldesians on the 6th set already, so it's hard for me to switch over to a new Energy Twister based build. We're using the Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge for your neck and ring. The 100% multiplicative damage is just unmatched by any other combo you can have in there. It's just tremendous. As I said earlier, using the Halo in the APDs. Now you could switch your Halo out for the alternative ring that you have in the cube. Mine right now is the Unity ring, but my Halo is a better roll than the Unities I have, unfortunately. And then we're using the Herbrash bindings for your belt. Now what this does is it makes your Arcane Torrent an Arcane Power neutral spell. And this is needed because, well, Arcane Power is just so important to this build. It helps you get more Twisters out, and the more Twisters you have out, the more damage you do. And that is because the Twisted Sword, each Twister you have out increases the damage by 150% for the Twisters that you have out. So it's just stacks and it scales unbelievably, actually. It's crazy how much damage you can put out in certain situations, especially if you can get your Twisters to stick. Now this is a tremendous roll. I got a 10% damage, low amount of intelligence, but I got the attack speed as well. I was running the Arcane Orb build, as I said, and I got this nasty sword, and this changed my opinion on this build. It made it night and day. Lastly, we're using the Etched Sigil. Now this sigil is tremendous just because it allows you to auto-cast these Twisters. As I said, more Twisters you have out, the more damage you do. So anything you can get more Twisters out, the better off you are. Lastly, let's go on the gems. Pain Enhancer, Esoteric, and Bane of the Stricken. Bane of the Stricken is pretty standard. We all know we need that to kill the bosses. Esoteric you also need for the damage reduction on non-physical damage. This is pretty much for bosses. You really don't need it during the course of the actual Rift, but when the Rift boss comes out, they one-shot you with pretty much everything. So this kind of saves your life in some situations. Lastly, I'm using Pain Enhancer. Other people are using Bane of the Trapped. Now I tested this multiple times on a Greater Rift 72, and I consistently ran the Greater Rift with the same exact gear set, only changing the gems from Pain Enhancer to Bane of the Trapped. I ran it faster with Pain Enhancer. The increased attack speed is tremendous. As I said, the more Twisters you have out, the more damage you do. This gives you the attack speed you need to get out as many Twisters as possible. You know what, I missed the passives. The most important to me are Unstable Anomaly, Illusionist. Next is Unwavering Will. This gives you a huge armor increase, resistance, as well as damage. And lastly is Audacity. Audacity is tremendous, don't get me wrong, but you're going to be doing a lot of kiting with this build, so I'm not sure exactly how much this actually affects the monsters I'm killing. Lastly, let's go over the cube. So I have the Furnace in here. The only other alternative I can see is the Aether Walker for the no cooldown teleports. Personally, in my experience, the Furnace is just by far a better option. 50% increased damage towards elites is a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when these elites get a ton of health, they start to melt a little bit when you have the Furnace on. Next, this is also extremely important to this build, is the Ransler's Folly. This is both an offensive and defensive way to round up monsters, so it's a good way to keep monsters away and keep them trapped, as well as offensively group them up so you can do more area damage to them with your twisters and your pure area damage stat. And I'll showcase how to use this during the next video. And lastly is Unity, which is just a static damage reduction. Next, let's get into the actual Rift. Okay, so now I'm going to bring you some gameplay footage of how to play this build. This build is complex, as I said before. Your general rotation is you want to be constantly moving, dropping bubbles, as you can see here, teleporting to the next bubble that you drop in front of you, and then continuing to hold down your Arcane Torrent on the enemies. As you can see, you'll see those little white streaks of light flowing to the enemies, and spamming your Arcane Twister, Energy Twister, attack at the same exact time as you're holding down your left click button. So this build really requires a balance of movement and standing still. The longer you stand still, the more damage you do, because the more twisters you can put out, the more you move, the more mobs you can collect, and the less damage you take. As you see here, in this particular case, I have two elites stuck in this room. This is actually a good position to be in because you're able to drop a ton of twisters in this little room, and they'll get stuck and do a ton of damage to the minions that are stuck in there. So as you can see, I'm able to just stand at a distance and just fire off my twisters and get the kills on these mobs. In most cases though, you're going to want to continuously kite the mobs and bring them to different areas, as I'll showcase just here in a little bit. Right here I'm going to grab a shield pylon. Some people don't like grabbing it because it won't proc your illusionist talent. For me, it's just nice to have the comfort of knowing that I won't die. So I'm not able to put up as many teleports and as many bubbles as I usually would because my illusionist is not resetting the cooldown on them. But in this case, it's just nice to have the survivability. I'm going to kite this. I'm trying to pull this whole room using Ransler's Folly and continuously kite these mobs down. And grab as much as I can and continuously pull them. I pop into that room to see if anything's in there, and we have this nice set of elites here. This hallway is actually tremendous. You'll see the twisters are getting stuck on the wall and running straight down the wall. This is actually a great situation to pump out some damage. What I'm trying to do here is just kite all the mobs that I've gathered into this room, and that way I could try to position them against this corner wall and get them to get stuck. You'll notice the Ransler's Folly right there. It was huge for grouping up these mobs. You'll see this here where I'm able to kite a massive set of minions and kind of track them all towards me. Here's another situation where I'm able to get, and this is very map specific, where I'm able to get a group of elites stuck in a room and drop a huge amount of twisters, as you can see. In this particular case, I actually think I got him stuck against the door, which is another added damage increase. Now, one thing you'll notice with this build is you'll get a lot of stragglers. As you can see here, not everything is going to pull. That's okay. It's going to happen. Ideally, you want to kill everything. If you spend time killing it, might as well, get the credit for it. But you have to value, are these two archers worth the time it's going to take to kill them? Or should I just move forward, continue to look for more mobs, continue to pull? Now this is a great example where I'm able to set up a large pull. You're able to use your twisters to really move the mobs to where you want them, and continuously put up the damage using your twisters. Now I got very lucky in this rift a few different times. As you'll see here, I got a speed pylon. Speed pylon is probably one of the best you can get besides maybe power pylon. I'm able to position the mobs right here in between this grate and the pylon. I'm going to be able to put out a ton of damage because I'm able to put out more twisters than I normally would due to the attack speed increase from the speed pylon. So I'm able to collect a quick kill on those mobs. Normally I'd kite those, but due to the positioning in the pylon, I was able to take them out quickly and move forward and continue to just group up mobs and pump out as many energy twisters as I possibly can get. Now, from here, this is where the second time I get lucky in this rift. So I'm able to gather one elite here, and as well as a bunch of minions. Able to pump out a ton of damage here, getting them stuck in the doorway on all the ads that are around them. And I'm able to finish this off pretty quickly due to the positioning. I do get a little greedy here, and I think I get myself killed. I really should have moved on at this point and continued to kite. Yep, I get myself killed. This is one of those decisions, one of those times where I felt greedy because I'm pretty ahead on the timer, but I really should have just been kiting forward. As you can see here, I'm going to just bring that elite with me, kill as many mobs along the way, continue to drop energy twisters, and spam my arcane torrent behind me. I do go back right there just to make sure I'm collecting all the mobs, and I do have the elites with me. Now this is an ideal kite scenario where I have a long stretch of land to be able to kite on. Here I'm sort of forced, my hand's forced. I have, I believe, 3 elites, but I have great positioning. I do have the doorway to the next area, so I really can't kite any further. But I'm able to get, I think, all 3 elites stuck in the room next door, and as you saw previously, it allowed me to just flood the room with twisters and melt their health. Now I do stay here for a little while and try to finish off these mobs, but it's worth it in the end because I'm able to get 3 elites worth of orbs with not too much time invested. So I'm able to get this kill. I did spend a little bit too much time trying to take that mob down. I got a little greedy. I'm ahead on the timer, so I'm feeling like I have the time to be able to push it a little bit. I get into this next rift. I can see an elite in the distance, so I know I have that coming up. I'm trying to kite all these mobs over towards them. I'm trying to pull everything over at once. As you can see, I drop a twister up on top of the ramp just to try to see if I can pull them up. I see this conduit pylon, and I know at this point that I'm going to get the kill. I'm trying to group as much up as I can, kill as much as I can. I do make a critical mistake here, as you'll see. I'm going to get greedy, kill them, but I'm also, instead of using the conduit on them, I'm going to get greedy and try to pull more mobs. I do pick the wrong path, though, as you can see, and I waste a significant portion of this conduit, but I was able to get greedy because I was so ahead of the rift at this point in time. Now I'm going to go back to that simple kiting strategy, holding down Arcane Torrent, spamming the twisters behind me, trying to bring as many mobs as I can with me at all times. This corridor is perfect for that. Also, you'll notice the twisters do get stuck in certain areas. That's not something you can teach, it's really more of a feel. You'll get to know after a few rifts where your twisters will get stuck. You'll see the health of the minions you're fighting just melt. Obviously, there's corners of the map that it'll work on. Also, a little debris on the ground will get the twisters stuck. But it's something I wouldn't worry about. It is necessary, but it's just practice will help you understand that. So I believe I have 2 mobs stuck with me right now. I realize that the 2 of these will probably be enough to kill them all. I do get a little bit lost here, I believe, where I didn't realize where the mob was at the time. You'll see I'll continue to pull. I'm actually trying to scout ahead right here and look for a good spot to fight the boss. The bosses have been the bane of this build for me. Your Embers, your Zoltan Cools, those type of mobs are just brutal with this. It's basically, you're not going to do it. It's just, you need perfect positioning. Blighter's actually not too bad. I played this pretty poorly. It was one of my, I think, like, first or second times playing against Blighter with this build, so I really didn't know how to handle him. As you guys probably know, his hands in the ground and his AoE that he fires out from his body one-shot you. So there's really no margin for error. I do die a few times in here. It's sort of a trial and error. I had plenty of time, so I'm trying to stay calm, trying to get him into a good spot. I'm trying to get him stuck in a corner, but it's a lot easier said than done. I think, if I open this up and I can get him to follow me in here, I start to position myself thinking he's going to teleport onto me. He doesn't, and he pops his arms, which, will instant kill you if you don't get out right away. One thing I learned, though, fighting other mobs or other bosses, is the lady with the sickle as well is very difficult to fight. Any boss that moves a lot is difficult to handle. I haven't played against a Hamlin yet. I think that has some pretty strong potential. I did fight against the lizards that do the replication and that, what's that attack called? Like the single line attack where they just pretty much one-shot you with that. At this point, I'm getting a little desperate. I'm getting nervous. I've been in this position many times before, trying to push to greater level 76, where I've had a lead, and I've just been unable to kill the boss. At this point, I sort of realized that I just need to do as much damage as I can. Like, positioning doesn't really matter at this point. Like, if I'm going to kill him, I need to just pump damage. So I do the little dance where I try to avoid the green AoE that he fires out. That will one-shot you. As you can see, the slow time that you set on him will slow it down enough for you to move. I don't think I get out of the way right here in time, but I did. But that is a one-shot, so you need to be paying attention for that at all times. The arms are very hard to avoid. You pretty much need to, when he does his little, like he basically T-bows in the ground, like you need to just run away, because if you get hit by that, it's an instant gib, unfortunately. So at this point, I'm panicked. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I've been in this situation so many times. I want to progress further. Like, my gear's decent enough. I'm just a bad player or something. So I get him in a decent spot where I'm able to do some damage from afar. And he keeps doing his little arm attacks, and they're not getting far enough out to do damage to me. And I think the twisters are getting stuck a little bit, or just enough to pump a little extra damage into him. So I'm able to stand back and luckily finish him off. It was pretty nerve-wracking. But if you have any questions on how to beat this build, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, please like and subscribe if you like my content. I'll try to make more if you guys like it. Leave a comment if you think it was great. Leave a comment and tell me I'm terrible. Any feedback is appreciated as I'm getting my channel started on YouTube. Thank you.